Okay, I spent a ridiculous amount of time debugging what is an incredibly dumb error. I've changed this code around a lot, but essentially every version of it was doing something of this form, where I was comparing an index into the audio outputs array with an index into the boxes array. So this is something quite bad about C, that you can't, well, not meaningfully anyway, or simply. You can't simply wrap a primitive type. Now, obviously you can make a structure that wraps a primitive type, and you can do that. But it's not very nice to actually use such a thing. Or maybe it is, I don't know. Maybe I should try it one day. But yeah, this is a downfall. So all primitive types are interchangeable. So we can just take two things that are indices into completely different things, and compare them. This is an index now, by the way. I'll have to change it. I'll change it back because it's a little silly. I'm using -1 as a terminal value, even though it's a size t, so it's unsigned. So I'll change this back. But essentially, every version of this code was doing a comparison between two indices, or two pointers, but essentially two indices that were different types, more or less. So I finally got that done. Oh yeah, and as part of debugging, I went ahead and made all these things atomic out of desperation. I'm not super thrilled about it because it requires a C11 compiler support, which I'm not super fond of, but it's not the worst thing. So the way that you use these is, instead of regular stores and loads, you do the atomic stores and loads, and then the compiler takes care of it for you. So right now I'm just making them entirely sequentially consistent. Strictly, that's not needed. Strictly, this can be a store release, for instance. But yeah, it's fine. It doesn't really matter. I think that's mainly what I changed, just this, so that it's a comparison between the correct things and not the comparison between index into the box array and an index into the audio outputs array. Oh yeah, and it turns out this just totally works. It works fine. So you can add and you can start recording. This is actually recording somewhere else, so I won't do it. But you can start recording. You can stop either of them. You can cancel either of them partway through. Like it just works, which I would say I'm shocked by, but I have just spent like 5 hours debugging that. But I'm kind of shocked by how seamlessly the whole thing just worked out fine. Both video and audio are captured into two separate files. So this is one of the big features that I need before I feel comfortable streaming, so I can have one that goes out to local, one that writes out locally, and one that writes out to an, I think it's RTMP, I believe is the protocol, but essentially one that writes out to Twitch, or wherever. And the other big thing that I would like to have, though I would compromise on if I just don't get around to doing it, is I would like to be able to hide windows. This is one of the big reasons I started the project in the first place, to be able to hide windows on an individual basis and render what's underneath them instead. I believe all that functionality should exist. It's just completely untested because I don't have a UI widget to do it. I'm thinking of also maybe next time adding a little show hide button up here, which instead of outputting the screen, similar to this toggle, which I started speaking as I turned it off, this toggle, which instead of outputting audio packets, outputs nulled packets. So the audio should have just been completely blank when I turn this off, because it nulls the packets. I also want a little toggle maybe sitting up here somewhere that I can click, that instead of outputting the screen, just completely blanks it and outputs nothing. And then hopefully the encoder can compress that in a sensible way. One hopes, at least. So yeah, this is a pretty big milestone to have this working. Feels pretty good that it's working. So we'll continue off next time.